Good evening. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for June 15th, 2021 to order. It is 6:31 p.m.
This conference will now be recorded.
We did not start an executive session tonight, so we are going to go right to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome, people back in the room. We are not alone, and we are not at home on Zoom. Yes, exactly. We will start with the weekly briefing. Is Dr.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Dr. O'Neill is in an adjacent room because the Board of Health was scheduled to meet this evening, but because the legislation did not pass, we can't accommodate both meetings. However, Dr. O'Neill, Megan, and I thought it appropriate that we have the board's final COVID-19 briefing presented to you this evening remotely by our former public health director, who, as I like to say, started this whole thing. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Megan Eldridge, for the final COVID-19 briefing update.
Welcome, Megan. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Caleb, I'm getting a little feedback too. So this is definitely a bittersweet update. This is the final day of the state of emergency that Governor Baker put in place nearly 15 months ago. I gave the very first COVID-19 update to the Board of Selectmen, and here we are 15 months later. And the numbers I would give every week, and I'll give our final numbers to you tonight. I want to start with the numbers from Massachusetts because I really do think that they tell a tale of the last year and a half. Massachusetts has seen 662,910 cases of COVID-19 with 17,586 deaths. And it was about 15 months ago that I walked into the bunker where I met interim town administrator there with Chief Gilmet and Chief Clark at the time and said, we will be in this for the long haul. It's not going to be over anytime soon. And every day we would watch the news and watch the numbers change every day. And every day seemed to have its own tragic event, whether it was a record high of deaths in a day or unfortunate events at long-term care facilities. But we did learn a lot in public health from this event, and we have a lot to be thankful and proud about in the town of Harwich. I'd like to read Dr. Katie O'Neill's last and final update. We have seen in Harwich a total of 757 cases of COVID-19 and 57 deaths of Harwich residents. Fortunately, right now, we're only following 2 active cases, and our positivity rate is very low at 1.2%. We have tested lots of people, and every week it goes down a little bit, and now we're testing about 300 people a week. That has gone from a high of over 1,200 a week down to 300 a week. We're doing very well with our vaccination. We have to date 8,328 of our 12,500 full-time residents are fully vaccinated. That's an amazing number. And about 1,000 more of those have received at least 1 dose. So that totals about 73% of all of our eligible residents that have been fully vaccinated. And we're very proud for having that number. Testing and vaccinations are still widely available if someone is still in need of a test or a vaccine. Barnstable County is still holding both testing clinics as well as vaccination clinics. And those vaccination clinics are no questions asked, no ID, no insurance required. You're able to basically walk in and get a dose. They're offering both the Pfizer and the Moderna doses through Barnstable County. And in Katie's words, her final report says that public health is commonly referred to as the invisible profession because it's not typically mentioned until there's a problem. The health department inspects food establishments a minimum of 4 times a year, pools 3 times a year, witnesses soil tests, monitors bathing beaches for water quality, inspects septic systems, monitors consumption wells, tracks infectious diseases, deals with nuisances, provides health education, and hosts vaccination clinics, just to name a few. Public health isn't flashy like some of the other health sectors, but certainly affects everyone. While Megan and I have been the face of the health department at the Board of Selectmen meetings, we couldn't have made it through it the past 16 months without the incredible health department staff. Jennifer Clark, Mark Pulselli, and Jerry Leonard have been truly invaluable assets to the town. When COVID first started in March of 2020, we were receiving over 100 phone calls a day. These were a mix of complaints and us comforting scared members of the public. The staff was faced with enforcing ever-changing regulations, sharing newly developed information on a never before seen virus, and working out in the field while others were working from home. All of these staff members were able to do this while ensuring that regular health department services were never neglected and maintaining a positive attitude. We were one of the few health departments on the Cape that still provided normal inspectional services and permit review during the entire pandemic. As the public health emergency wanes, they will still continue invisibly protecting the health and well-being of everyone in town. And those were Katie's words, but I echo her thoughts, and we will continue to be in the background of public health. And even though the official pandemic has been declared over by the governor, we will still monitor cases. Our work is not done. We still have regulations and standards to uphold for certain sectors, and we will always be willing to answer questions or concerns of the public and staff members. But this will be the last official COVID-19 update for the town of Harwich, unless and until something else occurs.
Thank you, Megan. I'm going to open it up to questions from the board and then possibly a statement from the town administrator. Mary, anything?
No, just a huge thank you to you and your former staff. That's an incredible amount of work that you did under very difficult circumstances.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo what Mary said. It's been a long slog. It's been a really difficult 2 winters, basically, and you guys just soldiered on. It's very proud of you guys.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Megan, for closing out the pandemic, if I can say it that way, and for your steadfast leadership over the last 15 months, and I think really setting up Dr. O'Neill well, because she's learned directly from your leadership ability, and with Katie, we haven't missed a beat. And I echo the thanks of Jen, Jerry, and Mark, and the crew there. And Mr. Chairman and members, I just want to underscore that other statement, that throughout the pandemic, the Harwich Health Department never stopped their normal inspectional activities during the pandemic when it was anything but normal. And then, Mr. Chairman, if I may indulge and take a moment to get in one of the last words perhaps regarding the pandemic, it will forever remain with me on March 10th, 2020, when the fire chief, or excuse me, at the time, the deputy fire chief, now fire chief LeBlanc, called me and told me that the governor declared a state of emergency. I will never forget Friday the 13th, March 13th, 2020, when I took what I will always consider to be an unprecedented unilateral action in the name of public health and shut down all municipal buildings. I said then, and I remain saying now, that I don't know that I had that authority, but it's a pandemic and you do what you have to do. And then last but not least, to really bookend everything, I will not forget Monday, March 16th, when the Board of Selectmen, as constituted at the time, met in an emergency meeting using an application known as GoToMeeting. And so there's a symmetry there where we started on March 16th and you are ending really on June 15th. And so, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as we progress meetings going forward, it is our intention to engage in fully public meetings of public bodies in rooms such as this. And Megan's absolutely right. She told us to buckle up, and I thought a long time was 3 months. And here we are 15 months later, but able to hopefully put a bow on this one. And as we did with the tornado, never forget and always be vigilant.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Megan, and thank Dr. O'Neill and the team. Very proud of this town's health department, and I think everybody in this shined, so thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy? Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Cindy Moon.
Live and in person.
That could be dangerous. Good evening. I am so excited to be here. Megan, I'm not sure, I can't see her anymore, but thank you to Megan and Katie for helping me and assisting all of our businesses through the pandemic. It was definitely a learning experience for all of us, but without the guidance of them and all of you, I think we'd be in a different place with our businesses, so thank you. On a happy note, what I'd like to do is I presented each of you with the new Harwich magazine, and it's a little different for us this year. Usually we share all the wonderful bodies of water, but the focus for the magazine this year, and of course I'm not on camera, maybe I am, I don't even know, Caleb, but it was all about Harwich life and what it means to all of us who are residents and sharing it with everyone. I didn't want the theme to be Harwich survived COVID. I wanted to share what all of us went through. So I hope everyone will enjoy that. I will be dropping some off to all of our now opened town buildings this week. So the Harwich magazine is here. It's available at the Chamber as well as throughout other local areas, as well as some new spots this year to really get Harwich out there throughout the state. We have it at Bass Pro up in Foxborough, as well as TF Green, and again for the 4th year in Mystic, Connecticut, all drivable destinations to the Cape. So enjoy Harwich as you all experience it yourself. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Public comment and announcement. I think, Joe, you had something?
Mr. Chairman, actually, before we conclude the weekly briefings, the expectation going forward is that we will no longer have weekly briefings on the agenda. If you recall, that was a pandemic creation. Item A, COVID-19 update, was exactly that, an opportunity for the board and the public to get regular updates on what was happening regarding the pandemic. And I will say it again, as this board, as evidence of this board's commitment to your business community, offering Cindy time every week under item B for the weekly briefing. So next week, when we meet in person in public, we would hope that Cindy would do public announcements as she used to in the past, and anyone else would. So this concludes our weekly briefing section of the agenda. I don't have any specific public comments at this time myself.
Is anyone online for public comment?
We were not made aware that anyone was seeking to be heard under public comment.
Thank you. Don? You want to do any public comment? Okay.
Don't have anything.
Okay,
Later
you gonna
on.
do that under Selectmen's
Later
report?
on, yeah.
Great. And moving on, actually, if it pleases the board, I would like to take old business A under public comments and announcements. It is listed on the agenda as an update, and I would need the support of the board to pull this up. We have one attorney in the room that had asked that he be able to read a statement or present, and we had one resident that had sent an email tonight that wanted to say a few words, and other than that, I don't anticipate any debate.
Do you need a motion?
Nope.
No.
I'll start with, I was unable to speak to our attorneys today, so our update will be very short, just that it is still going on and that we will be putting it back on the agenda next week, just to tell the town where we are with what's gone on out on Hall's Path. I'm first going to open it up to Andrew Singer, who asked to deliver a statement, and then I'm going to open it up to Sandy McClarty. But I would tell you, Sandy, I did get your email today, and the handbook on the A&R, approval not required plans. You can make a statement to the board. That is not what the board does. That is something that's more appropriate for the planning board, and I know these folks will be before the planning board, and Andrew, I'm sure, will tell us when. But I would certainly allow you to make a few comments on that. Don, is there anything you want to add on the Hall's Path tonight, or would you want to wait till next week?
I think I'll wait until next week to defer because there are some things that need to be said.
Yes, okay. Mary, any comments?
No.
Okay. Andrew?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just the Attorney Singer has presented to the board's clerk, I believe, a copy of your statement. Is that what that is?
Is a copy of the letter. It was just a signed original. We had emailed you a copy,
Very
but
good.
since we're in person tonight, I actually brought a signed original.
Great.
So, Mr. Chairman, we'll make sure that that resides with the original documents for the meeting in perpetuity.
Thank you, Joe. And the floor is yours, Attorney
you.
Singer.
Good evening. For the record, and for the first time in a year and a half in a town hall, my name is Andrew Singer. I'm an attorney in Dennisport here on behalf of Mr. Christopher Wise and Mr. Paul O'Connell. Both gentlemen are in the audience with us. We appreciate you wanted to just read this letter into the record. To Mr. Chairman, your comment, the planning board meeting on the approval not required is next Tuesday. Just, that's the planning board. It'll be probably in this room. So it is, and I just would like to, in connection with Hall's Path, would like to read this letter that, as was noted, we submitted late last week and provided a signed original tonight. This letter is from Mr. Wise and Mr. O'Connell. Dear members of the board, we sincerely apologize for the recent cutting along Hall's Path on property currently owned by Paul O'Connell and under agreement with Christopher Wise, and the improvements to the surface of Hall's Path without first consulting with town officials. Mr. O'Connell engaged the services of a contractor to cut on his property and improve the surface of Hall's Path to better access his property. Mr. O'Connell's property south of Hall's Path has frontage on Hall's Path from the paved portion to the northeast to the paved portion to the southwest. A regrettable incident involving the contractor led to the building commissioner asking Mr. O'Connell to stop cutting, which he did so immediately. When given the permission, Mr. O'Connell continued the work until the Harwich DPW issued a cease and desist order, which was honored immediately. In hindsight, Mr. O'Connell should have consulted with the planning department, the building commissioner, and the DPW prior to undertaking work on Hall's Path. However, he had previously developed 5 lots on Hall's Path, putting in town water and widening the road without any issues. This will not happen again. With respect to Mr. Wise, he has both a business and personal interest in doing things right with full transparency. Mr. Wise filed an application for approval not required endorsement for the 8 acres we're discussing to the south of Hall's Path. That's the meeting, parenthetically, I mentioned would be next Tuesday with the planning board. And in the future, Mr. Wise will work cooperatively with town officials with respect to any construction or development of the land. On a personal level, he is a strong supporter of the adjacent charter school and was discussing with them his acquisition of the O'Connell parcel. He is sensitive to the health, safety, and welfare of the students who utilize the playing fields and school grounds adjacent to Hall's Path as his daughter attends the school. As he proceeds with his application for plan approval, he is mindful of the need to consult with town agents. Once again, we apologize for pushing forward without proper consultation with the town. Thank you for the opportunity to present this letter of apology. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Singer. Comments from the board? Nothing? Don? Attorney Singer, I would just thank you and thank Mr. Wise and Mr. O'Connell for coming and presenting that and for your apology. Obviously, I think we have some distance to go, but I'm certain that we can get there. And one thing that is clear to me is, regardless of what happens out on that path, we have to be cognizant of traffic from Queen Anne Road running through that school property. So collectively, we need to figure out how that's gonna be a safe, thorough way for that school, which, based on the apology that was just given and the mention of the school, I'm sure that we can get there. And we look forward to dialogue and moving forward. And we will be obviously taking this subject up as a board. But thank you for coming tonight and reading that to the public.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and we agree with you. We look forward to working with all of you and the town on this area of town.
Great, thank you. Sandy?
For those that don't know me, I'm Sandy McClarty, East Harwich resident. I live on Pleasant Bay Road, just behind Hall's Path, connects to Hall's Path 1, and then near my house. I'd like to start by saying the claim that they own the land to the paved lot is not true. I've gone out there, I've looked at the plot plans, and if you look from Warren Smith's property and you look at the corner of the school property, I believe it's at least 15 feet beyond that. It certainly does not extend to the asphalt area there. I'm not sure about the other side, Buddy Escher's property. So in light of, I would call aggressive actions to change the way Hall's Path, I don't believe this is a sincere apology. It was about 100 feet by 30 feet wide of mature trees that belonged to the school property that was cleared without any permission to the school. This is unacceptable, and any decent person would know that permission is required beforehand. This is not just a little mistake, an oops. And so as I'm educating myself on kind of the lingo of subdevelopment and all of that stuff, I'm a novice at this. I'm an electrician. I'm not a town planner. But I'm starting to see a picture that there was a reason permission wasn't requested. There was a reason why people weren't notified, and that is access. In order to have frontage and a buildable lot, you have to have access. I've been told by the town planner that if it's a public road and there's a road on the ground, not just on paper, then it's a settled case. And maybe I won't go into the details that I wanted to read in light of what you requested, Mike. But I would just say that there's plenty of case law that shows it's not just about a road or a path that you can see, but the adequacy of that access. It has to be accessible. Now, the town can't own a road and neglect that road and then say, hey, you don't have access. That doesn't fly. But if it's never been paved, it makes turns, you bottom your car out like my wife did. She had to back up the whole way when she realized our little Honda Odyssey couldn't get through there. I believe that falls into a different category. And if it's not a public road, then the criteria are even stronger, that the width, the grade, the adequacy of it have to be there. And so I believe this was a calculated attempt in order to clear the grade and clear that hurdle, and then at that point apologize and proceed with their plans. So I would like the board to take my comments into consideration. I spoke to Buddy Escher. He was not able to attend. His daughter's sick, but he also expressed some of the same feelings that, this has been a very aggressive process. And I'll leave my comments at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And just to be clear, this was put on this week as a update, not an agended item for a reason. We were only going to give an update, so we won't get into any debate about any of this tonight. And we obviously are represented by town council, and we are still working on some things. So thank you for your comments. Okay, we're going to go to presentations. So a presentation of a solar array proposal by Monomoy High School school project citizen students. And Joe?
I believe we have excuse me, I believe we have John Dixon, the instructor, and I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right. We have Sophia Kors, who I believe is the author of the presentation that you have in your packet. And they are joining us remotely.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon is on.
Nice to see you all. I am on, but I'm going to let Sophia take the floor, hoping that she's connected.
Hi, my name is Sophia Kors, and I'm an 8th grader at Monomoy Regional High School. I'm a part of the Civics F block, my teacher, Mr. Dixon, and we are presenting our Project Citizen, which is solar canopies.
Welcome, Sophia. And I would just ask, Caleb, is there a way to get a visual? Are they on camera or are they just on audio?
They're on camera, would be shown.
Okay, thank you. All right, Sophia, the floor is yours.
Would you like me to present the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We can't buy them.
This year for the Civics F block at Monomoy Regional High School, my class is participating in this project, and we have picked climate change as the issue we were working on. To improve the climate, we thought of the idea of solar canopies. Solar canopies are designed to help utilize open space by incorporating solar panels on rise platforms. These solar panels are placed over parking lots to create shade for cars and provide solar energy. These will reduce electric costs for the school and will reduce greenhouse gases, in return helping the environment. What the project would end up looking like. So the size of this project is about 600 kilowatts. We have, at the high school, we have a rooftop system that's about 200 kilowatts, meaning these solar canopies would be about 3 times the size of that system. The cost of the project would be about $2 to $3 per watt, making the total about $1.2 million to $1.8 million. Costs could be paid by the school or by the developer if they get most of the money from the electricity. If the solar panels produce more energy than the school needs, the credits can go to other places in the district or the town. The map on the right shows where we were thinking of putting the solar canopies, which is on the parking lot to the side and in the back, 2 rows in each. The steps to this process is we would present to the Harwich Board of Selectmen, and the Monomoy Regional School Committee would decide to support the project. The school district would work with Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative CVEC to develop a project plan. CVEC would include the project in a future round of solar development. CVEC would help the school choose a developer and develop the project. Thank you so much, and if you guys have any questions, me and Mr. Dixon can answer them.
Great. Thank you very much, Sophia. I'll start. First question is, have you presented this to CVEC yet or to the school committee?
We have presented it to CVEC, but the school board wanted us to present it to you guys, the Board of Selectmen, before we presented it to them.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up with questions and comments from the board. Mary?
I applaud your efforts. This looks like a great project, and I'll be interested to see the funding. Obviously, the money becomes the issue. I think we're all in favor of solar power, so it's my sincere hope we can find the funding.
Don?
I think this is terrific. I mean, I'm going to go a little bit more global than Mary. When I got a phone call or text late in the week from another 8th grade student, and their project was recyclables and plastic. And it is so reassuring to know that we've got a bunch of young adults that are growing up that actually care and are giving the time to think out what they see as a future that's better than the one that they have at the moment. I think it's terrific that they're pursuing this. This appears to be a real project, so then the nitty-gritty is the details. But I really appreciate the presentation tonight, and we'll see what happens with CVEC as we move forward.
So Sophia, I think the board will take this under advisement. We will work through work with the town administrator and Dr. Carpenter and look towards presenting to the school committee and collaborating with them. So this will come up in the near future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so next up is CVEC. The first is the current Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative CVEC projects. Joe, do we have a representative to talk about A, B, and C?
I believe we do, Mr. Chairman. We're joined this evening by Maria Moresco. Maria is from CVEC. And Maria, if I'm getting your title right, you are the Executive Director. Is that the appropriate title?
Yes, that's correct.
Good
You
evening,
guys hear
Maria.
me all right?
Good evening, Maria. Yes, we can.
Terrific. Well, good evening, everybody. I am the new Executive Director at the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, and as you know, Harwich is a member. And the Monomoy School District can participate in CVEC's project. So if you don't mind, let me quickly address Sophia's presentation, and then I'll move directly on. So we met with the administrators and John and his wonderful students, and we included one of our developers to participate in the conversation, and it's wonderful that they quickly grasped the concept and were willing to put this presentation together for you. So in reference to the way that CVEC operates and how these solar projects actually happen, is that CVEC will develop the RFP process for each of these projects. And typically the town or the school district will have no capital costs associated with the installation of a project because the developer will take on all of those costs for the benefit of taking all the investment tax credits that are related to that. So the way that the school actually pays for the system is that they receive a reduced energy rate, and the developer charges a small amount called an adder, and so does CVEC for delivering that project over a 20-year period. So the capital costs are not an issue. What really becomes an issue is, where the district, or in your case, which I will quickly get to, where the energy need is. So I want to thank Megan for putting me on the agenda today. And I'm here to get some direction and/or definitive action with regard to 3 projects that were contracted in CVEC's rounds 4 and 5 in 2019.
Maria?
And I'm here on behalf of CVEC's board to resolve this matter to the town's satisfaction.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to pause you for 1 second, if that's all right.
Sure.
Before we get off of the school topic, I just wanted to read a quick statement by Larry Ballantyne, who could not be with us tonight. And his comments to Sophia and the team at the school were, "Well done by Monomoy Regional High School students. Seems it is a school decision, but I think our support is critical as we pay 75% of the cost of the school." And with that, I forgot to read that when we were talking to Sophia, but now you can continue.
Okay. And again, that is wonderful. So Harwich has 3 projects that CVEC procured on its behalf in rounds 4 and 5. They are the Harwich Community Center South, the Harwich Community Center North, and Harwich as of right. And we are at a point where, after a number of years, CVEC and I believe the town, we've been unable to successfully conclude our contract negotiations. And as such, CVEC reserved the right to withdraw from the negotiations and commence negotiations with another proposer, which it is not intended to do, or to cancel the solicitation altogether. The status of these projects, that the contracts for the two Green Skies projects, which are the Harwich Community Center North and South, are still in draft form and have not been successfully concluded, even though there's been a back and forth for well over a year, and I've been here for a year. And with DSD, unfortunately, I really don't have any direction about the town's intention of whether or not it wanted to pursue the Harwich as of right project with DSD, Distributed Solar Development. So with respect to these three projects, and before I ask, put it out there for all of you to opine, the context of this is that CVEC issued the RFP for these projects under our renewable energy procurement statute, and it's called Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 164, Section 137. It is similar to Chapter 30B, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and it has some similarity to Chapter 149, public buildings, and also some similarity to Chapter 30, Section 39M, public works. So we take our guidance from those standard procurement statutes and try to apply, and actually I feel compelled to apply those principles here under the CVEC procurement guidelines. The two concerns that CVEC's executive committee has is, one, the length of time that it has taken and there are no final contract negotiations, and that the pricing and the type of project are now appear to be so beyond the original intention that is no longer the original procurement. So in that context, I'm here today to ask you what you'd like to do with these projects in the context of you do have an option to withdraw them. You do have the option to put them into CVEC's round 6, meaning you wouldn't miss the opportunity, but we would revisit them and make sure that the project descriptions and what the town's expectations are actually are reflected in the procurement, and therefore also in the proposals that we receive. Or I'm sure there's a third alternative that you probably would like to discuss.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to turn this over really quickly to Joe Powers to see if he has anything to add.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll see in the packet the memorandum from our Assistant Town Administrator, and I want to thank Megan. She's made more progress on this as Assistant Town Administrator than I was ever able to do as our Assistant Town Administrator. And you can see in her memorandum where she talks about the reasons why we understand that these projects were on hold for so long. So, Mr. Chairman, you have on your agenda the opportunity to get into a specific discussion with possible votes on whether or not we wish to withdraw from rounds 4 and 5, as Maria has just presented, and then separately, if you then wish to engage in round 6. I don't have any specific recommendation, other than I do think it is appropriate if the board wishes to consider the withdrawal. I will defer to the board in the discussion as to whether you then want to go to resume that under round 6.
Joe, thank you. I guess I'll start. I'm confused. The memo is the memo, but what is it that takes so long? Or what has taken so long? And I know you walked into this.
Sure.
But what has taken so long that we then had to get a letter from Maria saying, what is going on with the town of Harwich and why aren't they acting? So the letter we received sounded like it was on us. And I'm not sure that it is on us, but I'd like an explanation.
Sure, I don't, I will not cop to the fact that it's on the town. I can tell you from direct experience that Town's Council through KP Law and I believe Council for Green Skies have been going back and forth for, I believe, over a year on the contract language without any satisfaction. And that's why it is easy for me to say that I think we should withdraw from rounds 4 and 5 because it relates to Green Skies. If I recall correctly, the project regarding DSD, if memory serves, I was at a town administrator managers meeting in early March of 2020, about a week before pandemic really took hold, and I had an opportunity to speak to my colleague Peter Lombardi in Brewster, where Harwich, Brewster, and one other town that escapes me were struggling with that project. So, to my understanding, it was unsuccessful negotiation amongst and between council, both for the town and for Green Skies. Beyond any other impacts with staff changes, someone leaving and me coming on board and staff changes at CVEC, but the majority of it was council disagreement.
Thank you, Joe. Don?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go back a little bit further. Mary wasn't here for a lot of this, but and I know Liz was in your position, so there's nothing you need to apologize for. But there was an awful lot of stuff that went on where we'd get a missive from CVEC that would say, you got to decide in 3 days whether you're going to sign something or not on a project, or similar activities. It didn't seem, even when the contract documents came for some things, there was an insistence that the town administrator sign them when the town administrator couldn't sign them under his authority at the time. So this, in large measure, it started out getting protracted because I don't really necessarily feel we were communicating with each other as much as talking past each other. In my world, if you're going to set up a contract, you talk to the people who would benefit from it at the end, who have some authority, and say, here's what we have in mind, here's what we can do. And it just seemed like we were playing catch-up on a lot of these things and trying to squeeze them back in to what the intent was, but the parties weren't all together on this. I know for a fact that one of the neighbors on the south side of the community center, who would have been affected by the canopies if there were lights underneath there, absolutely no one would contact him. And I know that the blithe answer was, well, when this goes to the planning board, he'll get an opportunity to know what's going on. I just, from my heart, don't feel that's acceptable if the town itself is involved in what the activity that's going on, and one of its citizens asking some valid questions about it. So I have some faith moving on that you're there now and that things are going to be a lot more cooperative, but that would be my expectation. We start out from the beginning of a process with an expectation on both our sides about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and roughly who's going to benefit, who has to pay for what, and then we move forward with contracts as opposed to addressing those issues when we're already in the middle of things.
Mary?
Obviously, I came in the middle of the movie here again, but reading Megan's memo to the board and to Joe, I see no reason not to take her advice and withdraw round 4 and 5. There's other opportunities out there that didn't exist then. I see no reason. I can't imagine any contract taking a year to negotiate. It's beyond my comprehension.
Thank you. I guess the theme lately has been communication, and I'm not sure who in their right mind on the private sector would let lawyers talk for them for a year and not get anything done. But I guess that's a separate agenda item at some point, Joe. I would look for a motion under B, a motion to withdraw.
Okay, I I move that we withdraw the as-of-right Community Center 4 and Community Center 5 CVEC projects from rounds 4 and 5.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Briefly, I would just say that Selectman Ballantyne, in a note to me, in anticipation of this, shared his concern about the one-year wait and also acknowledged receipt of the memo from Megan, and he supports removing 4 and 5 from the rounds 4 and 5. Don?
Yeah, I'd also like to note, especially given the presentation that immediately preceded this, that this in no way indicates our lack of desire to get more solar energy and other alternative energies. It's particularly aimed at this. And once we can get started again, I look forward to a bright future where there's a lot more of this that happens.
Thank you. Any of the public want to comment, either online or in person? Okay, with that, I'm going to do a roll call vote tonight because we are doing a hybrid. Until we are not doing a hybrid, I will continue roll call. So, Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Okay, we're going to move on to C, which is the round 6. Maria, do you want to give us an explanation on why it's advantageous for the town of Harwich to go into round 6?
I do, and this is unfortunately the precise reason that we've taken lessons learned and reconfigured, enhanced the CVEC RFP process to a very vigorous and robust a process with very tight expectations. Quickly, CVEC has bifurcated its process. By first, it has issued and will be receiving this Friday responses from developers. We issued a request for qualifications from developers. It's just so very important that a CVEC choose on behalf of its member communities, developers who understand what it is like to work in the public realm, what it is expected to be creative, what it is expected, to bring better and ideas to the table. So that is currently underway. In order to do that, CVEC actually developed a very robust process, and there is going to be an evaluation committee. I'm the chief procurement officer. I will have an advisory committee. We've invited all the community council as well as town administrators who have already expressed their interest to participate, to share their feedback with CVEC ahead of time. You are lessons learned, so we've incorporated all of these various issues into our process. And so what that means is that if you decided to get involved in round 6, that request for qualification for developer process has already begun. We will be choosing the developers who have the best interests of our member communities at hand. We've hired BCK Law to revamp the contracts in their entirety. And we have actually reached out to your council and have welcomed and appreciate the feedback that we've received. Again, they will be contracts that are town-driven as opposed to developer-driven. They will have time limits. You need to contract within so many days or move on, shake hands, let's move on. So currently we have 17 projects from 11 communities involved in round 6. We've asked them to pay $6,500. That's for that $6,500, you get a total revamping of the contracts from BCK, as well as the CVEC hired a well-known solar consulting from Cadmus Group out of Boston. They will be preparing, and they are in the process of preparing in-depth project prospectuses, or if you will, pro formas, that will leave a very small margin of error, wiggle room, change. Again, vetting the project in order to meet the town's and the residents' expectations. And then that RFP process, once that happens, again, CVEC has codified a very robust and vigorous procurement evaluation process. And the member towns are invited to participate in that process. And we understand, and my executive committee understands that the town has already made a significant investment in those other 3 projects. And therefore, for that, I told you that the cost would be $6,500. We would give you a discount, offset what you've already paid towards that $6,500 price. I'll let you and your staff go through the details, but it's about $2,800 a project. The only thing I can tell you is that I feel extremely confident that CVEC has taken the right steps in the right direction in order to come up with a very solid and procurement process that will meet all expectations and hopefully avert the problems that unfortunately, I apologize, that your town experienced. And with that, I'll answer any questions or leave it open to Joe and Megan to follow up with me at any point in time.
Thank you, Maria. I guess I'd start with the fee, the $6,500 fee. You mentioned a discount. I can only imagine what we've spent in legal fees for 4 and 5 that we never went through. Again, a conversation for a different time. What would this, if we vote tonight to add these into round 6, what is the actual cost per project to the town of Harwich?
It's approximate, I based it on the 3 projects, so it depends. One is 2,800, the other's 2,800, and the other one is 2,350. So if we want to split the difference and say $2,500 a project, that would be what we would be the net cost to the community per project. $2,500 per project.
And so what that gets us, what did we pay? Did we pay anything last time to get to the point we're at right now?
You did. For the As of Right project, you paid CVEC $3,700.19. You paid that the same for the Community Center 4. And under Community Center number 5, you paid CVEC $4,149.66. And yes, we do recognize the legal costs that the town incurred.
And Maria, for this additional expense now to do the same thing in what's called a different round, we get the benefit of having CVEC's attorneys revamp the contracts, so that hopefully we're not...
And the Cadmus group developing project descriptions that are defined.
Thank you.
And and should not be changed, modified a year later.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the board. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, this sounds good to me. If we can pursue this in a way that's transparent to everybody and we know where we're going. But again, even the setup of who signs the contracts, we have to work with each other here. I mean, the only thing I'm imploring you is, please don't send on a Friday that you need us to vote on a Monday for something as we move forward, because that happened all too often before your arrival.
Mary?
I didn't quite follow the math, but it sounds like we've already spent about 12,000 and gone nowhere. And what is it now going to cost us to effectively start again?
$7,000.
$2,500 a project. I'm
Okay.
rounding it.
So
And
75.
that is for the round 6 procurement process, Mary, to have CVEC's attorneys draft new contracts, as well as the Cadmus group to come up with standard industry prospectuses, clearly defining your project. That actually, and so that will yield you a recommendation for who should be award the project. Actually, there'll be two things. One, what are the four corners of the project? The size, what will it save the community? We will do a feasibility analysis, and we will do an economic analysis. We will deliver contracts that actually are on the best interests of the town, more favorable to the town as in previous CVEC contracts, and it will have CVEC handle the procurement process as well as the contracting process for you.
I guess I still see that we've spent 12,000, gone nowhere, and the things you're describing that'll be done the second time, in my mind, should have been done the first time. So I don't see where we're getting a discount here.
You're getting, I'm hoping, and I think our executive committee agrees that you will be getting a better project that will not require the protracted negotiation and or difficulty that you even experience with the Cranberry Golf Cart projects that are actually up and running. You will have projects up and running sooner than later with clarity that I don't think was afforded to you before. And I can share with you our commitment letter, which delineates our procurement process. Other than telling you, trust me, which I know after many years of working in state government, you don't really say that. It has to be earned. You tell me what information that you might need to provide you some clarity. We can supplement this, Joe, Megan, and I can provide this information throughout the week and present it to your board later, or if there's a consensus today, we can, we'll add you to round 6.
Megan?
I just wanted to ask Maria a question or confirm with her our conversations about combining the community center projects, the north and south, into one project.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, there would just be one fee rather than 2 separate fees, or maybe one fee that's a little less than the 2 fees combined. And is that something that the Board of Selectmen need to vote on, or is that just in project development that we have the option to combine those 2 previous projects into one project?
Thank you, Megan, and for I think that's fair. We would combine CVEC will combine them into one for you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Maria. Mary, anything further?
No, I'm gonna trust Joe and Megan.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I can't completely let our attorneys off the hook on part of the confusion over the last year, but the Larry Ballantyne had a few comments on this as well. Round 6. Round 6, okay, it was just answering financial questions, which I believe you've done. He did say, as in past, I am disappointed that we are again asked to make a decision with very little lead time. If I read documents correctly, we have until June 18th, 21 to vote for round 6 and receive the stated discount. We are also offered a chance to take advantage of battery program application due date May 7th, 21. Can you just speak of deadlines? I think I personally am willing to vote on this tonight, but are we up against deadlines, Maria, or is that just something Larry read?
Well, I mean, and I in all fairness to Larry, he's right. The CVEC should has to understand the way that our communities, remember, communities work, and nobody can make a good decision in haste. With that being said, I think we've started this conversation over a period of time. So with that being said, The June 18th was the date, as I alluded to, is that we are getting responses from developers, okay? The RFP will not be issued for like another month. So we do have some time to accommodate Harwich. The only sort of time that I can't answer for you today is the amount of time that Cadmus, the professional engineering company, will need to fully review these particular projects. But you have to, all I can say is I will work with you to give you as much time as you need to make a good decision.
Thank you, Maria.
As
And
far
I think
as the
I think all.
battery goes, I'm sorry, I don't really understand the context of that question.
Okay. Well, thank you, Maria. I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
It was actually in response to Member Ballantyne's questions. Maria, the board's making reference to packet materials that we have. There's a document that has the regarding statement of important announcement and action required, procurement process commitment letter for round 6 PV and or battery initiative. So that's a packet or a series of documents. It looks like it's a 8 or 9 page letter that also has the Appendix A, which is terms of CVEC's competitive procurement program round 6 solar PV project. Within that, it talks about a May 7th deadline. I believe that's what Selectman Ballantyne is making reference to.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, that was issued early on.
Okay.
If there were any new projects.
Great. Thank you. So I would look
This
from.
is unusual, and I'm happy to address and accommodate the town as best we can.
Thank you, Maria. Mary?
One last question for Joe. Do you think this is the right route for the town?
Thank you for asking. In my professional opinion, I would recommend that the town take a pause and not participate in round 6.
With that, Don, comments?
Well, hearing what our town administrator said, it may be better to step back to survey the future and figure out how we can go forward without these deadlines constantly popping up as near-term problems. I will say that the battery thing is intriguing because ultimately, I really feel that's the future for electricity. It's not net neutral. It really is how can you hang on to electricity to use it when you really need it. But we're in a summer schedule. There's a whole lot of stuff that we haven't finished that we should be finishing, and that was kind of the commitment the chair made to launch his incumbency at the chair. So I'm not sure that I feel like taking on another thing. Listening to Mary has kind of convinced me that it might be better off to just wait and see what the lay of the land is for the next phase. Because we really need to have somebody in talks about what is it we're really anticipating needing and what is needed of us. And we're still at a point where I don't really know.
Maria, if the board doesn't make a decision tonight and consults with the town administrator and includes Larry Ballantyne, the selectman that's missing in this, you alluded to us having some time. Does that stand? A couple weeks?
Let me say yes, then I will get back to you if, again, Cadmus gives me some feedback, other feedback in terms of their ability to deliver a very good project. I fully understand, a timeout. Right now, there's a shortage of batteries within the size that would accommodate the size projects, and steel prices, as you know, have risen 40%. So canopy projects are sort of in the balance here. So to answer your question, let me get back to Joe and Megan, if you don't mind. because I do want to set expectations, and I am not going, this is a new, CVEC is not going to be making demands and imposing deadlines upon the town. We're going to be setting expectations and setting out schedules, et cetera. We're not there yet, so perhaps if you want to get in round 6, I will let you know the date definitive when that it would be best for you to join without sacrificing the project. And then alternatively, if you don't join, I'm hoping that I can come back before you and say, we did it. We've proved ourselves to deliver, again, a rigorous and robust new type of CVEC procurement process. So either way, I'm happy, and it's just been a pleasure to meet you all. And I'm very much looking forward to working with Joe and Megan and christening the Cranberry Golf Cart project with you.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for your time tonight, Maria.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're moving on to D, which is an announcement. Annual meeting with licensed liquor establishments will be held Friday, June 25th, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the Harwich Police Department. This is an annual meeting for the local liquor licenses. Joe, the question I didn't ask last week, is Danielle sending out emails to the establishments to tell them about this meeting, or are we just relying on these announcements at the board meeting? Chief.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that. We are responsible for the letters going out. I think they went out a few days back.
Okay.
We communicated with Town Hall and agreed we'd do it.
Thank you, Chief. And for us, we encourage all local liquor license establishments to attend this meeting. Joe, anything you want to add to that?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that was more than adequate.
Great. Next is also an announcement. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public meeting to discuss noise on Monday, June 28th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. in this room. This meeting is about noise. The noise bylaw, the noise ad hoc committee, containment committee is going to deliver their report. I know we have at least one attorney that was hired by some residents that will speak, but all are invited to the meeting. The meeting will be here in this room, and we will hear everything noise related. The board is not obligated to make any decisions that night. We may. I'm going to open the floor for everyone to speak, and then I'm going to close it for the public to speak, and the board will deliberate. We will either make some recommendations to the town administrator to bring back in a form, or we will make some decisions that night and more later. But we will have the discussion, long-awaited discussion on Noise Containment Committee's findings, as well as open it up towards to the bylaw.
Do you want me to make a motion?
We don't have to, that was just an announcement.
No, I was on to F.
Okay, on to F. I know that before we make the motion, F and G are related to the same thing. The board for the past few weeks has been presented with reports from our police chief and police officers, and we have read the reports, and we have voted whether or not they need a hearing, and then we vote whether or not Joe Powers, town administrator, will be the hearing officer. Bob from the Seal Pub, as well as his partners, are in the audience tonight, and Bob has asked me if he can speak. In my opinion, we can go forward with both of these, and then I will open the floor for him to speak, unless the board would like to hear from him first. What I do not want to do is turn this meeting into a hearing. It is based on what information that we have gotten and whether or not we deem it necessary for the hearing officer to have a hearing. So my preference would be for a motion on these. We vote on them, and then I'll open the floor to Bob to speak and his partners if they'd like to. Board want any other format than that?
Nope, that's
Mary,
fine.
go ahead.
Okay. I move that we have a discussion and possible vote to hold a public hearing for the alleged violations at Seal Pub, 703 Main Street.
Can you just take the discussion part out and then vote and we can discuss?
So, Mary, it would just be, instead of discussion, move to vote. Yeah.
Move the vote
Move
to
that we
authorize.
vote to hold a public hearing for the alleged violations at Seal Pub, 703 Main Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Joe?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I understand that to be relative to the facts presented to the board by the police chief in his memorandum dated June 7th, 2021?
That is correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
That was in the packet.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Same thing, Mary, it would just be move to vote.
Okay. I move that we vote to authorize the town administrator to be the hearing officer, for the public hearing for alleged violations at Seal Pub, 703 Main Street.
Second.
As referenced just a second ago by Town Administrator Joe Powers. Any discussion? Don?
The only thing I want to say is foundationally, this isn't about the Seal Pub. I mean, I've been on the case of all liquor licenses having a foundational belief that we're going to enforce things. And it's not just about the Seal Pub. It is going to be about everybody for this summer because it's gotten out of hand. I mean, everything's gotten out of hand. So regardless of what the outcome, and I'm not thinking that one size fits all. I'm definitely not thinking that. But at some point or another, the message has to go out to everybody who holds a license that we're really serious. The chief knows that we've given him that message. And if nothing else comes from this but the realization that that's what's going on, that would be a positive move.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Bob, the floor is yours. And just ground rules. One person speaks at a time. Nobody talks over each other. I will end the conversation.
Okay,
And this is not a debate. You may make statements,
I'm going to make statements.
but we will not debate it.
Fine. My comment is there was no discussion. That you guys get a packet and there is no response from us whatsoever in there. Now, one of the things I was hoping to see tonight in tonight's meeting is that I had a meeting with the chief, and I also had a meeting with Lieutenant Hutton, neither of which showed up in your packet. So I come to you as our elected representatives, the only people I can come to, Dawn, Mary, Mike, and I try to plead my case. And what's weighted against me is anonymous blacked out names. I don't get a voice. There's no due process here. There's just, you guys have made up your mind and you're moving on to this hearing. And so there's no elected official that's representing us. There's just already decisions made. And we went through, it's interesting that I'm here tonight on the night that you guys are reopening for public participation. We took over the Seal Pub on February 7th, 2020. 36 days later, 36 days, we were closed. And we were almost nearly on the street. We don't have 20 years of history in this town to back us up and things like that. So for you guys to just accept at face value anonymous complaints without having anybody come in to talk to us, and for no comment to be made about what I thought was a very good meeting that I came proactively to suggest concrete steps we could take, because one of these things was when the mask ordinance was lifted, and you had a rush of people coming out celebrating and trying to be happy and getting back into things. It's been hard on us. It's not easy sitting in a room like this with no public participation. The bars and restaurants are constantly criticized, constantly. And they can make anonymous complaints from across a fence or across a street, and we don't have a voice. And you guys just showed that tonight, that we don't have a voice here. So I don't have a whole lot else to say. I would appreciate maybe the chief saying we had a good conversation. I thought there would be more concrete evidence of that meeting here. And that's really, I don't know if you guys want to say anything, but I'm very disappointed we got no constructive criticism before that vote.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to just to advise the board as your administrator and potential hearing officer that what's occurring right now is highly irregular and is not standard procedure. That is not a criticism of the chair or the board. you, Mr. Chairman, have the right to offer the microphone to anybody. However, the board should be aware that previous incidents of other establishments, the board, under previous chairman, did not allow this sort of activity to occur. And there are several statements that were made that are inaccurate, and I would only chalk that up to not understanding the hearing process in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But I would urge the board to cease and desist on this discussion at this point because it's problematic for all parties.
Got it. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to make one overall comment for this. I think you're misunderstanding what's happening here. This is not a punishment in search of somebody to impose it on. We have referred this for finding of fact to the town administrator, who will hear all sides during that process and then recommend what he thinks, based on having heard all sides, should be the outcome. This is not the end of anything. I mean, we haven't found you guilty. The process is we refer complaints to the town administrator to hold a hearing to find findings of fact. That's what the process is.
Under the recommendation of the town administrator, I'm going to end it. This was a very different comment tonight, Bob, than you and I had today. You had asked me to speak. I had explained exactly what was going to happen. I had explained exactly what the process was and why we have a hearing officer, and that your case would be made to the hearing officer, and the recommendations, if there was any finding of facts of guilt, would be brought back to the board with a recommendation. So you and I previously had that conversation, so your surprise tonight shocks me a little bit. The due process is exactly what we are giving you. Due process is a hearing where you can, and as I said, call witnesses, cop to whatever you think you did. We also had a conversation about the chief's comments about your proactive steps. So I will end the conversation there, but Bob, that was quite different than what we spoke about today, which is why I afforded you the microphone. So with that, we will move on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the record, it's important to note that what's on your agenda this evening and the action that you took as local licensing authority is with regard to alleged violations. There was no statement that there were violations. There are allegations. And that is why the hearing process that you've engaged in is appropriate.
Thank you.
And I think it's important to state for the record that these are allegations.
Which was part of the motion. All right, well, moving on to H, discussion and possible vote to apply for and accept coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund, CLFRF funding in the amount of $1,270,886, of which 50% is currently available for distribution, and the remaining 50% will be made available not less than 12 months after Harwich receives its first distribution. Carol, could you just give us a brief explanation of what this is? We've all read the material, so I think it's self-explanatory to us, but for the public's sake?
This is the new federal funding that's coming out to support coronavirus local municipal funding. There are very specific ways in which the community can expend those funds. That is in a document that is titled an interim final rule. So I suspect we'll be getting a final rule as well from the federal government. These funds for the town of Harwich, because of the population size is under 50,000, will be flowing through the state. So we make application through the state to receive the funds, and then we will be reporting to the federal government on a quarterly basis, much like we do for the FEMA projects and so the other CARES Act funds that the town has received. We report quarterly. We will be reporting to the federal government directly quarterly moving forward for these funds and how they're expended in accordance to their rules and regulations.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol from the board? Don, Mary?
No.
I'd take a motion on this.
I move that we vote to apply for and accept coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund funding in the amount of $1,270,886.
That's all you have to read.
That's all I have to say.
Yep.
Second.
Okay.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Next one is readable, if you want.
I move that we vote to authorize the chairman to sign the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Next up is the vote to approve an ad hoc designer selection committee. I don't know if you want this introduced. It was all in our packet. But Joe, if you want to give a...
If I may, and part of this is a shout out to our assistant town administrator. Megan, as you know, has as one of her primary assignments is leading the procurement effort. So this process is a requirement. You've heard me speak many times about standard procurement or regular procurement, if you will, which is Chapter 30B. So given the thresholds that are in play here, meaning greater than $30,000 for design and construction expected to exceed $300,000, all of which are fully expected greater than those numbers, we now have to adhere to the requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 7, which is one of the many other procurement laws. Chapter 7 and Chapter 7C specifically get to construction, design and construction of public buildings. So what Megan has outlined this evening, I think, is an excellent recommendation of a cross-section for the Designer Selection Committee. And I also want to acknowledge the efforts of David Spitz, your chair of the Brooks Academy Museum Committee. And I would ask the board to endorse this as presented.
Okay, can I get a motion on this?
I move that we vote to approve the ad hoc designer selection committee for the Brooks Academy Museum Building Project as described in the memo.
Including the names.
Oh, including the names? The committee to include David Spitz, titles too?
No.
David Spitz, Megan Eldridge, Mary Anderson, Ginny Hewitt, and Lincoln Hooper.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is the parliamentarian in me. Typically, under Robert's Rules of Order or many other parliamentary guidebooks, the first person listed would serve as the chair of the first meeting. I respectfully would request that we have Megan Eldridge serve at least for the first meeting as the presiding officer of that committee.
Do you need that as part of the motion?
And thank
Chair
you.
Pro
Yes,
Tem?
correct.
Do you need that as part of the motion?
It would be helpful, please.
Can we just add it, or do
Yes.
I go through? Oh, say.
Yeah, it's just Megan
Included
Eldridge,
in the
Chair Pro
motion
Tem.
is that Megan Eldridge will chair the committee,
First
Initial
meeting.
the initial meeting of the committee.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? The only discussion, Mary, obviously, did anyone reach out to you, and
That
are
would
you
be-
graciously
That would
accepting?
be no, but I graciously accept.
Okay. Thank you for graciously
Sorry and thank you, but
accepting.
we didn't want to squirrel the deal.
It's an important building.
Uh,
I'm glad you're doing it.
Roll call vote. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Thank you.
Next up is the discussion and possible vote on the 2021 liaison assignments. I would take a motion unless you want to discuss it first.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we had a discussion, you and I had a discussion today regarding the working group, as we call it, the Monomoy Regional School District Working Group.
Yes.
Our dear colleague, the late Selectman Ford, had served on that, as had Selectman Valentine. Do you wish to have that discussion tonight, or specifically notice for your meeting on Monday?
Meeting on Monday.
Very good, thank you.
I move that we vote to approve the 2021 Selectmen Liaison assignments.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. For discussion purposes, I'll start. There was a request to amend, and I think it's an appropriate one, given that we have several CPC projects that are in the works and several that are critical that we start and/or finish, and Don Howell has been the liaison to the CPC committee for the past few years, and my proposal would be to trade CPC back to Don and give Larry Capital Outlay Committee. So the amendment would be to swap capital outlay from Don to Larry and CPC from Larry to Don. If that's any discussion from the board, and then if not, we'll just do that amendment as a second part of the motion.
I'd appreciate it.
Add that to the motion?
Yeah.
The assignments will be amended so that Don Howell retains CPC and Larry Valentine takes capital outlay.
and that would just be part of the main motion,
That'd be second.
and you seconded that?
Yeah.
Great. Any discussion? Roll call, Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Joe, do you want me to amend that document and give it to staff, or do you want to ask staff to amend it?
We'll have staff take care of that. We've already noted it.
And then
Thank
if
you.
staff could see to it that that gets posted on the website and maybe shared with the committees as broadly as we can.
Absolutely.
Discussion and review of the Selectmen liaisons policy. That was added into the packet, right under the assignments. Don, I know you are very familiar with the policy. Mary, I put this in there and read it again today and highlighted it. I think the takeaway from it is we are exactly that. We are liaisons. We are not to participate in meetings. We are informational, to bring information from the committees back to the full board and from the full board back to the committees. If they have a legal question, they would ask you, you would come back to the board or the town administrator and talk about their legal needs, and then Joe would determine whether or not that needs to be brought back before the board. The biggest takeaway is we're not to sit in meetings and participate. All of that information ultimately can come back to us at some point, so we need to stay impartial on it. Don?
Yeah, and I might want to add that when I was the chair of the Bylaw and Charter Committee, that this is codified in the charter at this point. For a period of time, prior selectmen were basically viewing this as the fifth Beatle. They'd show up and they'd be part of the band. The hardest thing to do as a liaison is to say, the board doesn't have an official position on that. You can ask me personally for some advice, but that means nothing. The board hasn't taken a position. I will go back to the board and give them your take on this and see what they want to do. So it's really just to make sure that information flows efficiently back and forth so that they don't have to worry. Personally, I have always taken the liaison as you show up, you wave the flag, you tell them you're available, you have a phone number, you're accessible. Any problems you got, if you want me to come to a meeting, I'm coming. But normally, you're adults. We appointed you to give your own discretion on the issues, and that's what you should do. And I'm waiting by the phone if you need me.
I was pretty happy with the write-up. I thought
Perfect.
it was pretty clear, and I'm good with that.
Yep, and I think for me, it was another nice refresher. The last paragraph related to the regulatory boards, and I alluded to it earlier tonight when we were talking about the planning board conversation that we're about to partake in. We cannot be involved in any of that until after it gets appealed and comes before us for whatever reason. So, all right, moving on to update on the Stone Horse Workforce Housing Complaint, 860 and 868 Route 28. Joe, do you want to give us an overview on this? The memo is in the packet. If you want me to go through it, I can, or...
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to review first. I want to probably state the obvious. You have many memoranda that are in your packet this evening that were created by our Assistant Town Administrator.
Duly noted.
And I say that with all the appreciation and joy in my heart. I was able to take a staycation last week, and Megan not only, as always, did an excellent job of keeping the ship on course, but accomplished quite a bit. And so this is evidence of the other major role that Megan holds, and that is with a span of control over community development. So I do want to highlight that to you on the board and then the public in general. So what we have in Megan's memorandum is what should happen, meaning when a complaint comes in, you can see how it was distributed. She first started with her team in the community development organizational structure. So as you know, but as a reminder for the general public, that is in no particular order, the Conservation Department, Planning Department, Health Department, and Building Department. And so Megan, as the Assistant Town Administrator, has span of control over that, so she sent that along. She also shared it with my colleague in government, our police chief, and I think it's a very comprehensive answer, but I suspect for the general public it may not be the answer that folks are looking for. But long story short, the project that was underway at 860 and 868 Route 28 in Harwich Port does enjoy the benefit of a temporary occupancy permit and they do have the right under the law to operate as that until October 4th, 2021, when it automatically expires. The building commissioner has indicated that he would not contemplate, and I would direct him to not contemplate any extensions. This does allow that establishment to get through the first summer post-pandemic, presumably, if you will, but the town has every expectation that they operate that establishment and use it as intended and as presented in the town, and they've made claims to do the same.
Thank you, Joe. Comments from the board? Mary?
Joe and I have had this conversation. I just personally find it disappointing that a temporary occupancy has gone on. I drive by there, and there've been people there for a good year, so I understand. I'd just like to express my disappointment, which I believe is how the abutters feel, that they're being taken advantage of.
Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response, completely agree. And it's something that Megan and I have talked about and that we will emphasize with our community development team. You know, there's a lot that we abided during pandemic. We have now, quote, returned to normal. And these are things that we will actively pursue and aggressively pursue, because temporary is meant to be exactly that. But thank you for the comments. I share them and appreciate them.
Don?
Just that I totally agree with what Mary said.
I took it to the next step. I did call the owner of the building and had a long and detailed discussion with him. And he assured me that they are working on this, and he assured me that they did not plan on the pandemic. He said that several of our local businesses, which he cited, have rented rooms for their desperately needed staff. And these are people coming from all over the place and obviously have cars. But they are, he cited the need for local businesses. He said he got a lot of calls asking if he could rent space. He plans for next year to return to what the business plan was. He cited two of his other businesses in Chatham, which have, one of them has 40 rooms and never had a parking complaint or anything else. So taking him at face value, I believe that he sincerely apologizes and is making every effort that he can to make sure that there's orderly parking and no speeding. He has had a conversation with the on-site manager about noise and about parking, and will continue to work with him to make sure that the concerns are addressed. Moving on to town administrator's report.
Skip,
Oh, update on the snack shack. Joe, do you want to do any of this? You want me just to get on?
Well, I think if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll start, and rather start weak and have you finish strong.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did have an opportunity today to go over and examine the site directly. It is in good shape internally. Everything's locked, everything's secured. And I did have a chance to talk to harbor staff, and they did convey that everybody, as we know, is anxious for an operation of some sort to be there. And also reminded me that the artisan shacks that are directly behind that rely upon, that establishment to draw foot traffic. And we know that those artisan shacks are booked for the entire summer. So very hopeful that we'll get something done. And I use that, Mr. Chairman, as my segue to you, because you've done the yeoman's work to really bring this to a hopeful conclusion sooner rather than later.
So biggest update is we will have more of a RFP process, for lack of better words, for next week, and it will not be a full RFP. Joe will bring the legal language with him. We don't have time to do an RFP and get a restaurateur in there for this year, nor do we think that we could benefit the town by rushing the process. The concept was floated on having food trucks, so we are going to discuss next week food trucks and what we have to do to legally procure a food truck or two, as well as Joe's been in touch with the Director of Planning for site plan review to make sure that the site can accommodate food trucks and that the harbor master is okay with where we want to put them, or at least take his recommendations, and then the board will debate that. We are also, Attorney Kelly, that represents the Griffiths family, after the meeting where we voted to terminate, contacted me the next morning. There seems to be some confusion with our attorney. There is no will for them not to sell the equipment to the town of Harwich. They absolutely want to sell the equipment to the town of Harwich, and they absolutely want to terminate the lease as quickly as they can. So hopefully by next Monday night, we will have a termination of lease agreement. We will have a dollar amount on the equipment. We are in negotiation on that now. So hopefully by next week, the board can take some full steps on getting somebody in there for short term. And then our intent would be to put an RFP out for next year right away and advertise it as much as we can and really go a little more globally on a RFP rather than just an advertisement in a magazine or off Cape. And I think what the board did before, I still stand behind. I think we're a little too involved in the menu, and there was a lack of snacks. And
Thank you.
that to me, and actually I would say the board should take that on the chin, because that was not department head. I know Selectman Howell debated and argued against, and I think maybe even voted against. But it did,
friend here, though.
But it did pass. But it did pass, and we were way too involved in the menu. So we're looking for success for whoever gets that location, and the board will have that conversation. The short fix is to try and get food trucks in there and be able to use that deck and in and out of that building to make sure nothing goes wrong with the equipment that we are about to purchase.
Great.
Comments, questions?
That's a great update.
Okay.
It's a much better plan.
So, and I would applaud Attorney Kelly for his efforts in putting this to bed as quickly as we can at this point. He is, and unfortunately, the tragic death of Mr. Griffiths and his burial tomorrow has obviously put this a bit on the back burner for his family as far as making the final decision. So, you know, our prayers with that family and condolences with that family. And with that, I will go to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A very quick update. As is the practice, I will inform the board that I completed a contract for a procurement process regarding the DPW, specifically mower equipment that supports our parks operation. Parks Department's 20-year-old John Deere mower engine failed. The cost to replace the engine would have been in excess of $10,000. Parts only, with labor, of course, being done by Kyle and his team. The replacement model, which we opted for, was $17,000. So rather than continue to have Kyle do his extraordinary work MacGyvering, if I can make that a word, we opted to purchase directly. It was off of the state contract, and the award, the bid went to John Deere, Deere Company, and it again was $17,549.84, and the line item funding was available and approved by the finance director. It was very timely because this mower is used extensively spring, summer, and fall. So it was critical equipment that needed to get done. So I want to thank Megan, Griffin, Carol, and certainly Kyle for their expeditious work on that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Joe. Selectman's report. Mary?
I don't have anything.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This afternoon, I had the pleasure of representing the Board of Selectmen. A somewhat sad occasion, but it was a celebration of the retirement of Rich Houston, Karen Kelly, and Betsy Simmons as teachers in Monomoy Regional High School. Prior to that, in Harwich, my own children went through there. It was terrific. The police sent 6 cruisers. Fire sent full fire apparatus and an ambulance, and I was the sad trailer at the end of it. But it was well received. Their peers had just come out of a faculty meeting, so that everybody was at the entrance at the back of the school. It was terrific. They're all cheering, applauding, and it was something I hope they remember. And on the other hand, I'm not letting Rich Houston off that easily. I expect him fully to be showing up at every town meeting from here on in because he's got nothing better to do.
Thank you, Don. And I guess congratulations to their retirements. My kids had all of them. So I have no report, so motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Should have run on